here we are on the roof. You remember Ryan marked the hole, and you could either mark it with a nail, like if you could reach it in the attic, you can drive a nail through the roof between your trusses or your rafters centered. So when I cut my hole, I don't cut anything structural, right? I'm just cutting plywood and shingles. We use an electrician drill bit. He drilled a hole right there. That's my hole right there. So I want to center my flashing on that, right? Like this. There's some stuff to think about when I'm putting my flashing on. I know I can move my flashing up and down a little bit and it'll just barely change the angle of my tunnel, right? So I look at my bottoms right here, right? So I've got these diverters on the flashing and I want those covered up by a shingle. I don't want these showing. So I look at that and I go, oh, if I center here, this is going to be my last shingle on top, right? I don't like it because it's not going to cover the diverter. So what I will do, I'll slide the flashing down a hair and I'm going to put this shingle on top of the flashing, and my flashing will be covered to here, right? So when you're marking the inside, pay attention and go, if I move my flashing up and down 2 or 3 inches, is it okay, right? The other thing, like this hip, I don't want this fin going over the hip because I don't, right? So this is a perfect, it's perfect right where it is. So I center the flashing, I get the same reveal here as I have here, and then I have a lumber crayon. Yellow, red, whatever color you like. And once I center on the nail or the hole that we have in the roof, I take my crayon and I trace the inside of my turret, of my hole in my flashing. And I trace it like that. So now I have a circle, oval, on the roof, right? And I'll take my flashing, secure it over here, and so it doesn't slide off the roof, and there's my circle, right? So now if I cut this exactly, it's going to be too small. So when you flash in a pan flashing, you want to leave a 5/8 gap, the shingle short of this turret. And what that enables the water, when it comes down and hits, it gives it a trough or a channel to run around it so trash doesn't get in it. And if trash does, it dams up and then you start getting water moving horizontally and you don't want that. So you want to leave a 5/8 gap. So to do that, if you take a lumber crayon and draw your circle, you need to cut outside that circle a 1/2 inch. These trusses are 24 on center, so this will fit. I don't have to worry about cutting. I can cut that hole just like it is. If it was 16 on center, my hole would start here, but then I'd have 2 flat spots on it, so I didn't cut the rafters, right? Just something to be aware of. 24 center, you can cut the hole just as it is. So that's what I'm gonna do now. When I cut my hole, I like to start at the top at 12 o'clock. I come around to the right for some reason, and I stop around 7 o'clock. So what you gotta be careful of, where a nail is nice, instead of a hole, a nail gives you a handle to hang on. This plug is gonna be heavy, and you don't wanna drop it or it'll smash through the sheetrock on the inside, right? So you gotta make sure you hang on to that plug. So I cut around like that, and now I'll start here, and when I cut 1/4 of the way, it'll get flexible enough that I can lift this side up and hang on to the plug, and then I'll finish my cut. Don't drop the plug inside the house. So about in here somewhere, I've got 6/8 inches still left supporting it. I should be able to lift this plug up and get under it. And now I'm going to hang on to that. So then I finish my cut. And that is my cut. So my next process is to lift the shingles up. And I take a flat bar and I'll come underneath them like this. And why I'm lifting them is because this fin, the pan on the pan flashing, I need to go under the shingles, right? So I've got to lift up the shingles to do that. And remove any fasteners, nails that are in my way. So I think I have all the nails out, but I'll dry fit it in just a second. The bottom shingle, you see how it still curves? You don't want to leave it like that, because the trash that gets in your 5/8 gap you leave is going to wash around, and if it can't wash straight off the roof, it's going to congregate right here, and it's going to, then when it makes a dam, the water is going to come down and start trying to move horizontally off the flashing, and you don't want that. So what you do here is you cut the shingle straight. You can use a hook blade razor knife. We use a tiny pair of snips, and I'm just going to cut this straight so it looks like that and like this. And this is the piece that was short, so scissors work really well for me, especially in the winter when it's cold. The shingles get brittle. It cuts really nice. So that piece I'll use back. And now what I do, I put my bar under to the right side, and then I can hold this side up with my hands, and I'm going to dry fit the flashing. What I mean by that is I'm going to try to see if it'll go in without putting sealant on it so it's not a mess. So I'll pick it up. And it fits perfect, right? I like that. So now I'm good. So on this tunnel, we're going to use a sealant that we're going to apply with a caulk gun. On the other tunnel we're going to do, I'll show you a different way with a mastic. So I pull the flashing back out. On the bottom side of the flashing, especially the bottom, so you don't get wind-driven rain that goes between the flashing and the shingles into your hole. You want to make sure you have good bead of it. I run 2 circles all the way around it like this, right? So that's one, and then I'll run another one. Right, I like that. Then I'll turn it around. This is the side that's going up. The bottom is going to show, so you don't put any sealant on that. You're going to start around in here, and you're going to do the same difference. And you know to stay about 5/8 away from the turret, the part that stands up, so because that's going to be out from under the shingles, you'll be able to see it. So now I've got it all sealant top and bottom. I have my pry bar under this side to hold it up so I don't scrape the sealant off. I start it, and then I hold this side up with my hand, and I just start underneath it like that. Boom, slide it underneath there. Then I'll pull my bar out and get a look at it, and I want to center to have this 5/8 reveal nice and smooth, and you see the gap. So water comes down with shingle aggregate, pine straw hits here, and it has a channel to go out. If I let this shingle curve around like it did, you see what happens? It makes a dam here, and you don't want that, because anytime you have a dam, water is going to start moving horizontally, and you don't want it to do that. So simple, cut it off. It looks better, and yeah, you want to line this line up straight with the bottom of the shingles so it's straight. And look at that, look at that. I like it. And now we screw the flashing down. Now I put sealant on top of every one of my screws. If you just do a little circular motion, it goes out really nice. And that shingle's glued down. You remember a shingle ended right there, right? So this is the piece I cut straight for that. So this one I'm going to put sealant on the bottom of it, all the way down it. Also on the top half that is going to be under the reveal. And now this is going to go under here. And this one you definitely need to put sealant on the edge, because that joint happens to end really close to the end of the pan flashing. So you just need to make sure you've got a lot of sealant on it, and put a screw in it so it stays there. So what I'm doing now, I'll pick up each shingle that I pried up to begin with, and I'm gonna put the shingle with nails, right? I'm gonna put a screw back in each one of these to hold them down to the roof. And I'll put it right where you would typically put a nail. Sometimes you have to start the screw and back it out because it'll, as it goes through the flashing, it'll pick the flashing up and the flashing won't be tight to the roof deck. So if you watch me put this drill in reverse, right, I go through and I'll back up and then start again. And after I do that, then I'll put sealant to make sure the shingle sticks again, because once you pry one up and break that tar line, it won't want to stick again. So if you put sealant underneath each one of them, then you're good. All right, that's it for the flashing. Screwed down, ready to go. Now we're ready to drop the piece of tubing in that we pre-built. And what I'll do when I drop this in, I'll look down, and to stay in the ceiling, the piece of wire we stuck up, I'll angle my pipe to be pointing centered on that. So then when we cut the hole in the ceiling, and we cut the hole last, because when I cut this hole, all the sawdust and aggregate from the roof is gonna fall into the attic. And if we'd cut that hole in the ceiling, then it would be inside the house. We do put plastic and drop cloths down, but still, it's better to do that. The other thing, if it's windy, if you're at the coast, or wind is either gonna blow in this hole or it's gonna come out of this hole. And if it happens to blow in it, then if you have blown in insulation, it'll blow it all over the house. So we try to have the hole in the ceiling the shortest amount of time we can have it. So now I'm gonna put the tube in. So if I drop this in, the pivot ring is a great thing. It helps you install. You can put it level with the top of the flashing, or if you want to angle it to catch the sun better, you can do that. So I'm looking at my hole down here, and I need to put some bend on this elbow because I'm not pointed where I need to be. So I'll lift it up, and I like the elbow articulates in two places. I don't need much angle on it, so I'll choose the top articulation point to use, right? And all my seams are lined up right now, so the elbow is straight. If I want to bend, I call that's like 4 inches of bend, right? So that got me some angle, and now I'm gonna drop it back in, and I'm gonna look at it. What I'm after is trying to make this level and point at my hole, and that is perfect. Like way perfect. So now the next step is to pull this back out. And now that I have my elbow at just the right angle, I'm going to tape it so it doesn't move. So I'll put one piece on that, lightly touch it. I'll tape the other articulation, because when you start rubbing on it, you could turn the elbow and mess up your angle. So just get cross both articulations with a piece of elbow tape first, and then you're good. Now you just go around and tape it, the whole thing, and that'll make the elbow a lot stronger. It'll keep it from moving, and it'll keep all the daylight inside the tunnel, and bugs can't get in it. So then again, you take your hands, push on the tape so it sticks. If you just stick it on there, it'll fall back off, so you want to push on it hard. So now I drop it back in, line it up on my pin, and that is perfect. So you'll notice the pivot ring has 5 holes in it, and that I'll put some screws in it. There's a set of 5 small screws. It's the pointed ones are the ones you use. So now we're ready for the dome. This is all secure, so when you're inside, when you're trying to connect the two pieces of the tube in the ceiling to the one I just dropped in, you don't have to worry about this ever changing the angle. It's secured, it's hanging on the flash, and it's strong, and you can do these 30 feet long. You'd need to use a suspension kit if you did that, but that's the way to do it. So when you put the dome on, it's got 5 holes in it also. A 10-inch tube, which you'll see in a minute, has only 4 holes. But there's ribs in here, and what these ribs are for, they're for condensation. So if you get an extreme temperature where it's crazy cold outside and warm inside, when the air hits here, once in a while you'll get condensation on the inside of the dome. And it's water droplets, and what it'll do, it'll chase the radius of this dome, it'll follow it, and the way it gets out, it's genius, it wicks out through these little cracks. And it's great. So they're there on purpose, and that's what they're there for. But when you put the dome on, you want to line up these holes with a crack, so you're screwing into one of the cracks. It's simple. This also has a neoprene gasket on it, right? So it fits really, really nice. So when you put the dome on, you need to center the dome, not push one side down, because if you do, you won't be able to get the other side. You got to push it all together at the same time. And then what you want to do is go around it and feel that it's sitting all the way down on it, like it's even, and that is. So, and then the other set of screws that come in the kit have neoprene washers on them, and you want to put them through here, and the washer keeps the screw from leaking in the dome. You don't want to over torque these, you want to just cinch them up, because if you could put a stress crack with the heat temperature in the dome. So you just want them to just touch the edge of the dome, and that's it. And there's 5 of those. And that is it for the roof work.